A message about you was sent, but it wasn't meant for your ears. Before you understand what was said about you, you must understand what was written about you. Psalm 64, 2-4 declares, "Hide me from the secret plots of the wicked, from the rebellion of the workers of iniquity, who sharpen their tongues like swords and aim cruel words like arrows." This was not written for history. It was written for moments like this, because there was a secret plot, there were sharpened words, and a message about you was sent, but it was never meant for your ears. My beloved soul, listen carefully. Not every attack is loud. Some are structured in whispers. Some are framed as concern. Some are delivered as just between us. And you were never copied on that conversation. You were never invited into that exchange, but heaven was. You felt something shift before you understood why. You sensed distance without explanation. You noticed that the room changed temperature when you entered it. That was not insecurity. That was spiritual awareness brushing against hidden dialogue. And God says, "I concealed the conversation from you because I was protecting your composure." If you had heard it too soon, you would have reacted in pain instead of remaining in power. Stay with me, because this is where exposure becomes elevation. The message they sent carried your name like a warning label. They tried to frame your confidence as arrogance. They tried to frame your silence as strategy. They tried to frame your growth as threat. But they underestimated something crucial. You are not sustained by their interpretation. You are sustained by divine intention. While they were sharpening their words, heaven was sharpening your discernment. While they were constructing narrative, God was constructing evidence. You wondered why certain doors hesitated. You questioned why momentum slowed. You sensed resistance without confrontation. But what you could not see was that heaven was allowing the whisper to circulate so the motive could surface. Because hidden motives must be revealed before divine justice can be released. God says, "I allowed the plot to form because I needed the room to reveal itself. I will not promote you into environments that secretly resent your oil." There were alliances you did not know existed. There were private exchanges positioning you as expendable. There were attempts to reduce your influence before it expanded, and you stood unaware of the full strategy. But your unawareness was protection. If you had confronted it prematurely, you would have disrupted the exposure process. Now listen closely. The same message that was meant to isolate you has triggered observation. Someone heard it and did not fully believe it. Someone began watching your consistency more carefully. Someone started comparing the rumor to your character, and the discrepancy became undeniable. This is how vindication begins, quietly. Psalm 64 continues and says that God will shoot them with his arrow. Suddenly they will be struck down by their own tongues. Do you understand what that means? It means the very words sharpened against you are becoming the evidence against them. You did not defend yourself loudly. You did not launch a counter-narrative. You kept showing up with integrity. And your stability under invisible pressure has unsettled those who expected you to crumble. My beloved soul, do not scroll away from this moment, because what you thought was stagnation was filtration. What felt like delay was divine surveillance. Heaven was watching not only what they said, but how you responded without knowing. And this is the part they did not calculate. God says, "I am turning the whisper into a witness. The room that once echoed with doubt about you will soon echo with reconsideration." The message about you traveled further than you realized, but so did the truth about you. And now there is a quiet shift happening behind the scenes. Conversations are being revisited. Assumptions are being questioned. Alignments are being reconsidered. You were never meant to hear it, because you were never meant to fight it. Heaven intended to flip it. But here is what you must prepare for next. Exposure does not end with silence. It ends with separation. And in the next movement of this message, I will reveal why the people who carried the whisper may soon be distanced from your destiny, and how the very plot meant to contain you is about to escort you into a room they cannot enter. My beloved soul, remain attentive, because exposure always produces a dividing line. It does not only reveal who spoke, it reveals who believed. It does not only uncover the whisper, it uncovers the alignment behind it. And this is where the separation begins quietly, not with drama, not with confrontation, but with distance that feels almost natural. You may have already noticed it. Certain connections are thinning without conflict. Certain invitations are no longer arriving. Certain conversations have cooled without explanation. Do not chase them. Do not force clarity where heaven is creating closure. Because God says, when I expose a hidden plot, I also begin removing hidden access. The message that was sent about you did more than circulate rumor. It revealed loyalty levels. It revealed insecurity levels. It revealed who was comfortable benefiting from you, but uncomfortable witnessing you rise. And once that revelation surfaced in the spirit, alignment began shifting. Here is what you must understand. Betrayal is rarely about destruction. It is about distinction. The whisper did not come to break you. It came to separate what cannot follow you into your next season. And God says, I will not allow proximity to replace purity. If their agreement with you was conditional upon your limitation, then their access to you will expire at your elevation. You were wondering why certain people seemed subtly threatened by your growth, why your victories were met with polite applause but distant eyes, why your consistency felt heavier around them. That was not imagination. That was incompatibility surfacing. Because the message that was sent about you was rooted in fear. Fear that you were advancing beyond containment. Fear that your influence was expanding beyond control. Fear that your quiet discipline was building something they could not interrupt. So they attempted narrative management. They tried to shape perception before promotion could solidify. But heaven intervened. Proverbs 26:2 says that a curse without cause does not alight. That means words spoken without truth cannot permanently land. They may circle, they may echo, but they cannot attach to what God has not authorized. And this is why you are still standing. My beloved soul, this next truth is crucial. When God allows exposure, it is not merely to vindicate you. It is to prepare a cleaner platform beneath you. Because elevation built on contaminated ground collapses under pressure, so heaven cleared the soil first. You felt delayed, but you were being protected from ascending with hidden resistance attached to your steps. God says, I will not promote you with saboteurs in the shadows. I will reveal the fracture before I release the favor. There are individuals who are quietly realizing that what was said about you does not align with what they observe. They are replaying the conversation in their minds. They are noticing your steadiness. They are sensing integrity that contradicts the whisper, and their perception is shifting. This is how redemption of reputation unfolds, without you speaking a word. You did not defend yourself because you did not know the full accusation. But even if you had known, your silence would have still been your strength. Because truth does not panic. Truth waits. And God says, I am restoring your name in rooms you have never entered. I am correcting assumptions without your involvement. I am establishing clarity where confusion once circulated. Now listen closely, because this is where elevation begins to form beneath the surface. The same room that entertained doubt about you is about to require what you carry. The same voices that question your capability will soon acknowledge your consistency. The same atmosphere that resisted your presence will begin seeking your contribution. But before that happens fully, separation must finalize. Do not grieve what quietly exits your orbit. Do not resent the distance. Do not attempt to revive what heaven is retiring. Because when hidden opposition is exposed, it loses its assignment. My beloved soul, this is not loss. This is filtration completing its work. And here is the part you must prepare your heart for. Some of the very people who once entertained the whisper may attempt to reapproach you when the shift becomes undeniable. They may soften, they may reposition, they may attempt reconnection, but discernment will be sharper now. God says, I expose the plot not only to protect your path, but to sharpen your perception. You will not mistake access for alignment again. There is a new steadiness rising within you, a calm awareness, a clarity that does not need validation. That is the internal shift that precedes visible elevation. Because once separation finishes its assignment, invitation begins its movement. And what is forming behind the scenes is not merely correction, it is redirection. A door is aligning that cannot be influenced by whisper campaigns. A space is preparing that values substance over narrative. A conversation is being arranged that will not be shaped by insecurity. But in the next movement of this message, I must reveal something deeper. The message that was sent about you did not only expose them, it activated someone unexpected. And what that activation is about to produce will change the trajectory of your next season entirely. My beloved soul, lean in closer, because what you are about to understand will change the way you see what happened behind your back. The message that was sent about you did not stop at exposure. It did not end at separation. It activated observation in someone who carries more influence than you realize. You thought the whisper traveled quietly. You assumed it dissolved after it was spoken. But heaven allowed it to reach ears that were not aligned with insecurity. And now, without your awareness, evaluation has begun. God says, I permitted the conversation because I needed the contrast. I needed your character to be measured against their accusation, and you did not fail the measure. There is someone who heard your name framed in limitation, yet they have been watching your consistency. Someone who heard doubt attached to your potential, yet they have seen your discipline. And what they observed did not match what they were told. This is where divine reversal intensifies. You see, scrutiny can either collapse you or confirm you. And because you continued in integrity without knowing you were being examined, your stability has become undeniable. Now listen carefully. This is not the first time heaven has allowed a private conversation to set up a public elevation. In the Gospel of Mark chapter 3, there was a moment many overlook. When Jesus returned to his hometown, people began speaking about him, not in reverence, but in reduction. Is this not the carpenter? They said. They reduced the anointing to familiarity. They tried to shrink divine authority into common identity. They framed him according to what they thought they knew. But their private commentary did not diminish his assignment. It revealed their limitation. My beloved soul, understand this deeply. They spoke about Jesus in rooms where he was present physically, yet spiritually they did not recognize him. And still, heaven's purpose moved forward. Their whisper did not cancel his calling. It clarified who could receive him and who could not. In the same way, the message that was sent about you has revealed who recognizes your value and who reduces it. God says, if they must misunderstand you to feel secure, let them misunderstand. I do not shrink my chosen to satisfy insecure observers. There were individuals who only saw your past version. They referenced old seasons to justify current doubt. They leaned on outdated narratives to explain your present growth. But what they did not account for was transformation. You are not who you were, and the whisper they circulated was built on an expired image of you. Stay with me because this is where the hook deepens. The one who is now observing you sees the evolution. They see the maturity. They see the composure under quiet pressure. And while others attempted to define you by familiarity, this observer is recognizing you by fruit. And God says, I will cause the right eyes to see what insecure eyes refuse to acknowledge. This activation is subtle, but it is powerful. Because influence does not need noise to move, it needs alignment. There is a conversation forming that does not carry accusation, but curiosity. A discussion emerging that is not shaped by insecurity, but by interest. And you remain unaware because heaven is still shielding you from premature reaction. Do you understand the mercy in that? If you knew every word that had been spoken, you might feel tempted to defend yourself now. But God is preserving your posture so that when elevation unfolds, it unfolds clean. And here is the deeper revelation. Sometimes God allows your name to be mentioned in skepticism so that your integrity can be mentioned in respect. Jesus was reduced in his hometown, but outside of it, recognition expanded. The limitation of one room did not define the reach of his influence. And the same principle applies to you. The message that was sent about you has already begun separating familiar limitation from future expansion. You are not losing ground. You are outgrowing environments. You are not being rejected. You are being redirected. But this next layer requires your full attention. Because the activation happening behind the scenes is not only preparing correction, it is preparing invitation. And the person who once heard doubt about you may soon become the voice that advocates for you. The whisper was meant to stall you. Instead, it positioned you for scrutiny, and scrutiny confirms substance. Now ask yourself this quietly. What if the message that was never meant for your ears was actually the doorway to the room that is meant for your destiny? In the next movement of this message, I will reveal why the same name that was once spoken cautiously is about to be spoken with confidence, and how the transition from hidden plot to visible promotion is closer than you think. My beloved soul, do not relax your attention now, because this is the point where invisible movement begins turning into visible shift. The name that was once spoken cautiously in private is about to be spoken confidently in authority. And you will not orchestrate it. You will not campaign for it. You will not defend your way into it. It will unfold because heaven has decided that enough evidence has been gathered. You must understand something critical. When God allows your name to circulate in hidden rooms, it is not always to expose the enemy immediately. Sometimes it is to position a witness strategically. Someone who was not emotionally invested, someone who was not intimidated, someone who does not benefit from your limitation. That person has been observing longer than you realize. God says, I allowed the whisper to reach ears that discern. I permitted your name to be mentioned where influence resides, and I have been shaping the response. This is why you must resist the temptation to clear your name prematurely. Silence has been serving you. Composure has been speaking louder than rebuttal, and what they interpreted as weakness was actually discipline. Now lean in, because here is where the tension tightens. The room that once entertained doubt is beginning to experience internal discomfort, because the narrative they accepted does not align with the evidence they now see. The consistency they observe in you is contradicting the suspicion they were fed, and cognitive dissonance is forming. That discomfort is divine, because when truth quietly persists, false framing begins to fracture on its own. My beloved soul, some of those who once nodded in agreement during that hidden conversation are now questioning their own agreement. They are replaying moments. They are revisiting interactions. They are comparing tone with truth, and slowly perception is correcting itself. You never saw this happening, but heaven did. And God says, I am shifting the conversation without your involvement. I am restoring your reputation without your interference. I am building advocacy where there was once uncertainty. Now here is the deeper hook. When perception shifts in influential places, opportunity follows. There is a decision approaching, a discussion approaching, a moment of selection approaching, and your name is still in circulation, but not in the way it was before. The whisper that attempted to restrict you has unintentionally expanded your visibility, because scrutiny highlighted your steadiness, and steadiness under pressure attracts trust. But do not misunderstand the process. Elevation born from exposure carries a different weight. It requires maturity to handle it, because when the narrative flips, those who once doubted may attempt to align, and this is where discernment becomes essential. God says, not every returning voice has repented. Some return because they sense momentum. You must distinguish between remorse and repositioning. You will feel it. That subtle shift in tone, that softened language, that sudden interest, that renewed curiosity. Do not be flattered, be grounded. Because the true elevation is not about proving them wrong. It is about stepping into alignment without resentment. You cannot carry bitterness into promotion. It contaminates clarity. My beloved soul, something strategic is unfolding even now. There is someone who has been quiet but attentive. Someone who values consistency over charisma. Someone who respects stability over spectacle. And they are beginning to separate truth from distortion. You may never know the full details of what was said, and that is mercy. Because if you knew every word, you might struggle to receive the platform that now forms from the correction. Here is what you must prepare for. When the invitation comes, it may not come with apology. It may not come with explanation. It may simply arrive as opportunity, and you will have to decide, will you step into the room without demanding that the past be acknowledged? Because sometimes vindication is silent. God says, I will not always correct them publicly. Sometimes I will elevate you privately, and the elevation itself will be the answer. The message that was sent about you created a dividing line. Now it is creating a doorway, and this doorway will not require you to force entry. It will open because the narrative no longer holds. But there is one more layer you must see clearly. The exposure was not only about them, it was also about you. It revealed your restraint. It refined your patience. It strengthened your internal security. You did not collapse when something shifted around you. You adapted. You remained steady. You continued forward. And that inner stability is what makes you ready for what is next. Because in the next movement of this message, I must reveal why the very structure that once resisted you may soon depend on you, and how the plot meant to contain you is about to transition into partnership they cannot withdraw from. My beloved soul, this is the moment where everything converges. The structure that once resisted you is beginning to recognize that what it attempted to contain is the very thing it now requires. What they tried to sideline is becoming essential. What they tried to question is becoming solution. And you must hear this carefully. When dependency replaces doubt, power shifts quietly. The room that once entertained uncertainty about you is approaching a problem it cannot solve without the very grace you carry. The system that subtly resisted your expansion is encountering a limitation it cannot overcome with its current capacity. And the name that was once spoken with caution is about to be spoken with need. God says, I will cause those who question your oil to require your light. Do you understand the weight of that? They attempted to dim what intimidated them. But darkness does not defeat light by whispering against it. It only reveals its own insufficiency when light is absent. There is a gap forming, a weakness surfacing, a demand increasing. And suddenly what you carry is not optional, it is necessary. But before you step into that awareness, you must understand something profound about how God handles hidden plots. In the Gospel of John, chapter 11, when Lazarus fell ill, a message was sent to Jesus. Lord, the one you love is sick. Yet Jesus did something that confused everyone. He did not rush. He delayed. By the time he arrived, Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Conversations had happened. Assumptions had been formed. Some likely whispered, if he truly had power, this would not have happened. But the delay was not neglect, it was positioning. Because what began as a private message about sickness became a public demonstration of resurrection. My beloved soul, the message that was sent about you carried undertones of limitation. They are not ready. They are not capable. They are not the right fit. But heaven allowed the delay so that when the shift happens, it does not look like correction. It looks like undeniable necessity. When Jesus stood before that tomb, He did not argue with the earlier whispers. He did not debate the assumptions. He called Lazarus forth, and what had seemed final became proof. In the same way, God says, I am not defending you through argument. I am revealing you through demonstration. The very environment that thought it could move forward without you is beginning to realize something is missing. The absence of your contribution has exposed the insufficiency of their structure. This is the turning. Because once need is acknowledged, pride begins to soften. And here is where your heart must remain clean. Do not enter this shift with silent vengeance. Do not step forward with the desire to prove. Step forward with clarity. Because elevation that flows from purity carries peace. My beloved soul, they may not apologize for the message that was sent. They may not admit the doubt they entertained. But you will sense the pivot. You will notice the difference in tone. You will see the recalibration. And God says, you will not have to remind them of what they said. Your fruit will remind them of what they misjudged. There is a sacred power in being needed without campaigning to be noticed. There is authority in being invited because absence revealed value. But listen carefully to this final layer. The message that was sent about you was never meant for your ears, because if you had heard it, it might have hardened your heart. And God was protecting your softness. He was protecting your focus. He was protecting your humility. Because the elevation coming requires you to walk into rooms without the residue of resentment. You are not stepping in as someone who survived a plot. You are stepping in as someone who was prepared through it. And now the structure that once resisted you will align with you, not because it suddenly changed character, but because necessity overruled insecurity. The hidden plot became divine positioning. The whisper became witness. The doubt became dependency. And this is the revelation that seals it. What was never meant for your ears was never meant to shape your identity. It was meant to shape your environment. God says, I allowed the message so I could measure the room. I allowed the resistance so I could reveal the readiness. And now the path is clear. My beloved soul, when the invitation comes, and it will, do not hesitate. Do not shrink. Do not replay the unseen conversations in your mind. Walk in with peace. Walk in with steadiness. Walk in knowing that what they attempted to reduce, heaven has refined. And when you stand in that moment, when you realize that the very space that once questioned you now depends on you, you will understand why you were shielded from hearing it. Because you were never meant to fight the whisper. You were meant to outgrow it. And now the shift is no longer hidden. It is happening, and you are ready.